Hey everyone, welcome to the FlipSide and our Thrive Leadership Interview Smash Up. That's right, the podcast that looks at the Bayside weekend teaching, and all of the content we put on our Thriving Churches International is smashing up. And the reason we're doing this is because we have Alli Worthington with us today. Alli Worthington, thank you so much for joining the FlipSide and Thrive Leadership and speaking at Thrive Conference. It's a joy to be with you. We've had some familiar faces on here, Chris Brown, Mark Clark. This is my first time meeting you. We met 3 minutes ago, Alli.
Did. We hit it off.
We did hit it off. I felt there was some chemistry there. You went to In-N-Out Burger the second you got here in town. And so I'm like, yeah, 2 thumbs up. Way to go, discerning person. So, Alli, you're an author. Mm-hmm. You're a great communicator. Tell us a little about your life, where you're from, what you're doing, what your family looks like before we get into our FlipSide questions.
Well, I live outside of Nashville with my husband and 2 golden retrievers and 5 sons. People are always shocked that we've survived having 5 sons. That's what home life looks like. I'm also a business coach and an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. Now, the rumor on the street is one of your retrievers does not retrieve.
She does not, and the other retriever is a puppy and lives to hound the elderly golden retriever. So we've got an interesting dynamic.
We've had multiple dogs that didn't obey my training to retrieve, and they would not. I would throw it, they go get it, they just would never bring it back.
Same. They think retrieving's overrated.
Yeah, exactly so. Well, 5 boys, that's so awesome. My favorite leaders are the people that have to lead challenging situations. That sounds like a challenging situation. I grew up in a family of 7 with 4 boys.
Oh, wow.
So what is the age range on the boys?
The youngest is 12, so we go 12 all the way to 22. So 22, he's in college and has survived.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
The rest are getting there.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, 3 questions.
Yeah.
I always say 3 questions only, but it ends up being a couple follow-up questions too. But let's start this one with it. How, if you could do 2020 all over again, Alli, don't have to explain why we're asking this about this year. If you could do 2020 all over again, what would you do differently, my friend?
That's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind, I would have been like, I should pay more attention to Bitcoin. That comes to mind.
Or Doji
yeah, whatever
coin.
It is.
Dogecoin,
But seriously, I think that I would have paid more attention to my emotional health and coaching other leaders in their emotional health going into what we lived through.
Right.
Because obviously it was difficult for everybody. Everyone was concerned with taking care of our responsibilities,
yes,
taking care of the people we lead. But I've seen a crisis of leaders starting at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, through this point of people just essentially hitting the wall.
Right.
So led strong through 2020, took care of people, moved to mountains to take care of their churches and
right,
their businesses and their organizations and their families, and then just hit the wall and say, I'm done. For a lot of people, it
yes,
was, I made it through the holidays. I don't know what's wrong, but I'm out of gas.
Right.
So I think I would have invested more in my own emotional health and spoke to leaders in advance of how important it is to keep an eye on our own emotional health as we lead people through crisis.
And get pragmatic on that for me, Alli. What are some of the things, if someone's listening to this right now and they're going, that's me, I hit that limit at July, I hit that limit at December, I got almost all the way through, we got to March, and now I'm out of gas, I'm not sleeping well, what pattern, what practice, what idea should they start employing in their life right now to get their breath back?
It's very simple. It involves picking up a phone and calling a counselor and making an appointment.
That's great.
I called mine in January and said, I don't know what happened. I hit the wall. And she said, well, it's simple. This is what happens to leaders. You lead, you push, you take care of everyone, and all of the tools that you have in your toolbox at some point, they don't add up anymore. And if you don't spend time filling your toolbox back up with tools that you're going to use to help people and just taking a breather, you're going to burn out.
So I have a leadership friend of mine. I was going over this problem with him. He says to me, you need to go to counseling. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, and he said, nah, stop right there. How many people have you said to go to counseling over your ministry life? I said, there's 3 counselors in town that own their whole kids' college career to my pastoring. And he said, there's a little shame in you there. I just sense it. And he was 100% right. So made the appointment. I went in there. And this is a guy I love. He's a counselor I love, but trust him. helped so many people. But even me, in my mind, I thought, it's going to take me maybe 2 months of sessions before I'll start getting. He said something on my first session. We were about 3/4 in. And he said, Kurt, you're trying to control the outcome, and you can't do that. You need to bring your best self, but you cannot control the outcome. And I felt this little idol of that leadership subtle thing that happens where you go from trusting God to controlling. And I was like, oh, I felt like the show What About Bob? I'm like, you can help me.
What do you know?
It was like a weight lift. Yeah. And now I've been going this mantra going, okay, bring your best self, but you're not going to be able to control this outcome. And even if you could, your outcome is going to be worse than God's outcome. So don't control it. That's so really good. I love the fact that you said that, especially for leaders. Okay, I want to plug a book here that you wrote, Standing Strong, which is, I think, every sermon we've preached for 18 months. I told you off camera that I got a little beef. It's a women's guide to overcoming adversity and living with confidence. And my beef is I'm a man and I want to overcome adversity and live with confidence. So give me a little insight into this book without giving away all the beautiful secrets that you will learn if you actually read the thing. Give me a teaser here. What will I get out of this in terms of overcoming adversity and living with confidence?
Well, I'll tell you something. I write it as a women's guide because women buy the books.
Right.
And what happens is women read my books and then they give it to their husbands and go,
of course,
you got to read this. And the husbands go, oh, it's a woman's book, but okay, I'll give it a shot. So I like to get it in the hands of people who will share it.
You're sneaking into the people that are really, I like that.
It's funny. It's an interesting story. With each of my books, I pray and see if the Lord will give me a word for what the next one's going to be. And about 2.5 years ago, I heard from him that he had a message for people to get strong and that we were going to go through difficult times. And he wanted to partner with people to fulfill his purposes on the earth. And then when the pandemic started, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And it was about this time 2 years ago, I went, oh, I see. I see why you had me write that book. And there's been many times in the past year I've picked it up to be reminded of what God told me before we went into this season. That he does have a lot for us to do. And I think one of the big lessons that I learned that I write about in the book is so often self-doubt is what takes us out. And that as Christians, we're always worried about being prideful, but God wants to build up our strength. He wants to build up our confidence. He wants to partner with us. That we have all these heroes in the Bible because they simply agreed to partner with God.
Right.
And that he cares about everything. He cares that someone invented Zoom years ago. So during the pandemic, we could talk to our grandmothers. He cares that accountants do taxes. He cares that women are raising families. It all matters to him, and it's a partnership. And that's a really passionate message from that book that I like to share.
That's great. I love the idea that God's grace is something that causes him to partner with us. I love the John version of the feeding of the 5,000 because Jesus like, feed this whole crowd. And they're like, what do you want us to use, this little boy's lunch? Little boy, come here. And I love the fact he looks at the lowest power person in the group and goes, hey, let's you and I do something fun together today. And I always think about that kid and go, years later, someone says, that Jesus, I don't know. Oh, let me tell you my story. He partnered with me. Yep. That's just a powerful concept. Okay, so I'm going to reverse this. I'm going to read this and give it to my wife.
I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Let's go. Okay, this is the flip side part of this. We like to talk about the message, and the way this started out, Alli, is that we do sermon prep as a team at Bayside. So we got live communicators on all of our campuses. Andrew and I are here at the Granite Bay campus where we're at, and we get in the room, and these folks, man, it's so rich and so wonderful to do sermons in a team setting. The only problem is we have more content than we can ever use on a weekend. So we said, well, let's just put it in the flip side. Yeah. All of that set up to say, talk to me about what you're reading in the Bible, what you're preaching on in the Bible. For the folks that are joining the flip side and want that Bible content, where's your head at? Where's your speaking at? Where's your teaching at in your church, your ministry in the Bible right now?
I'm kind of obsessed with Moses.
Okay, good. I like this.
I love that Moses messed so much stuff up. I love that
Yes.
Moses' first thought was, I can't speak. You don't even know, Lord. And Lord's like, yeah, I know. You're going to do what I tell you to do. I love that he was so human. I love that it's so clear that God loved him so much, that God partnered with him, that he was a friend of God. I love their relationship. And it's so bittersweet that at the end of his life, this man that God loved so much and trusted and partnered with, there at the end, he blew it.
Right.
Numbers 20. He
Yep.
got mad. He struck the rock. He didn't
Yep.
trust God to display a miracle, and he wasn't chosen to lead the people into the promised land. That all in all, it's okay. He's
Right.
still a great hero of our faith, but he's just a man. He's just a
Yes.
human, just like the rest of us. So the more I think I know about Moses, the more I study, and the more obsessed with his life I get. There's layers and layers
totally
and
agree.
layers. Yeah.
We just preached on Exodus. We just preached on Moses, several passages in our Against All Odds series. And I go, I've been preaching this stuff for 30 years, and I'm not anywhere near exploring the end of it. Let me bring up 2 moments and get your thought on it. So he says, God, I can't speak. God gets mad at him. What makes God angry is when we tell God what we can and cannot do. But then immediately God didn't go, and yes, you can speak. No, he goes, I got this guy coming. He can actually speak. And so tell me about that. How does a person stand up in confidence, like you were saying a minute ago, in their gift in this moment? How do you go, God, I'm gonna take some risks and try to do this thing that I think you've gifted me to do?
I think the first thing to do is to realize that we aren't going to feel good about it. It's going to be awkward. We're probably going to fall down and get bruised. We're going to make mistakes. I'm a big believer, if anything's worth doing well, you should do it badly at first.
Right.
Because we're going to be bad at first.
Right.
That whatever it is God's called us to do, it isn't necessarily going to be easy. It's going to be awkward, but we're going to build our strength. And I think we have this idea that confidence is something that's fixed, like height or eye color. And that if God has called us to do something, we are going to have doors open. We're going to feel good. And what happens is when we don't feel good, we go, oh, I don't have peace about the situation. I thought this is what God had for me, but obviously not. And we take ourselves out of the game before we ever get a chance to play. We think we should feel confident. But the truth is, the only people that feel confident all the time are narcissists, and we don't want to do that either.
That's so good.
Right?
Yes, that's so good. I would say if you don't have some self-doubt, you might just be a totalitarian leader. So, yeah, let me talk about the frustration moment at the end, the moment you brought up the strike in the rock. And he does so well for so long. You know, what I love about that passage is God says, I'm going to punish you by not letting you go into the promised land. And my punishment is you get to come to heaven. You don't have to fight all the battles. You get to come to heaven.
Yeah.
I have just become a connoisseur in 2020 of noticing when people are getting activated. Talk to me about, how do you derail or stop yourself from getting into that frustrated response place? When you feel that in yourself, is there any strategies you got us for there in that moment? Your kids are pushing your button, your job's pushing your button, your spouse is pushing your button.
Yeah.
What do you do in that moment?
I've done a lot of personality work, just trying to become more self-aware.
Sure.
So I know under stress with my personality, I become very critical and controlling, and that's not my personality at all. So when I see that in myself, it's a red flag that I need to see what's going on, and I need to chill out and kind of just take a little bit of time and breathe and figure out what's causing the stress. Because what I used to do is I used to just plow through and go, oh, I realize maybe I'm not the healthiest right now, but these people need me. I've got to do this. I've got to do that.
Gotta get these boxes checked off.
Nothing good is going to happen. So the best thing I can do, it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, is to take a little time to say, Lord, what's going on with me? Help me chill out. Help me get a little bit of perspective, and let me work through what's causing this. That's what works best for me. But I think for all of us, realizing what's our behavior when we're not in the healthiest state. And once we're aware of that, we can look for it. Or we can have somebody really brave that we trust have the permission to call us out on it.
That's great. She's talking about you. Stay with me when I get activated on this podcast. Okay, final question, Alli. Thank you for being with us. I'm just thinking about, we've touched on this a little bit. I'm thinking about all the stuck and discouraged people out there. if you were to encourage them, if you were to get them to mount up the energy to get a second breath, what would you say to encourage people right now?
I would say that even though it doesn't feel like it, that God has great plans for you. That no matter what has happened, what we've been through, we need to keep trusting that God has great plans for us. Whatever situation we find ourselves in, we keep an eye on the Lord. We stay focused on Him. We allow Him to lead us. We allow Him to tell us what steps to take next, because no matter where we are in this season, He has a great future for us ahead.
That's great. That's perfect. Alli, what a joy to have you in the Bayside universe here at Thrive, on the FlipSide, on the Thrive Leadership interviews. I want to encourage you, go check out everything Alli's written. This is not the only book she's written. There's a ton of others. They all have incredible titles, and you're going to find all sorts of content online about Alli that's really wonderful. Also, would you please go ahead right there in the browser right now, unless you're driving, just enter in Bayside Church YouTube. Bayside Church YouTube. And then when you get to that site, subscribe. I want you to turn on notifications too. I don't recommend that for every site, but every once in a while we drop some incredible stuff. I want you to be aware of that. You're going to find our Expectation Marriage series that we just put on there. You're going to find the Do Good on there with Andrew McCord, Bob Goff, Chris Brown. You're going to find the weekend messages at Bayside there, the study of Marcus there, the study of Galatians there. It goes on and on and on and on. All of that is so that you could put roots really deep down into everything that God wants to build into your life. So, Bayside Church, YouTube, subscribe, turn on notifications, and then go ahead and just turn the notifications off on the Weather Channel and your news channel and ESPN. Just take a break from that for a minute. Okay? All right. God bless you. Thank you for turning into the FlipSide and Thrive. We really, really appreciate the fact. Would you do me another favor and just share this to someone who needs it? And God bless you. We'll see you next week on the FlipSide.